If I ruled the world, I love 'em, baby.
Welcome to If I Ruled the World podcast, and we have another fine installment. We're sitting here on Wantagh, Long Island?
We're in Wantagh, but on Long Island.
Long Island.
Yeah.
Wantagh.
I hesitated because I knew that my Long Island accent was going to fly out with the word Wantagh and Long Island. But we're sitting here with an old friend, a great guest. This is John Nolan from Taking Back Sundays sitting here with us today.
Hello.
How's it going, John?
It's good. It's going very well. Thank you for having me today.
Not a problem. We stole him from Mulcahy's
Mm-hmm.
just a few moments ago.
Yes, a very Long Island venue. One of the, I think they've been there for like 40 or 50 years or something, right?
Oh, really? You know, because we were reminiscing that.
I was off by like 39.
Yeah.
I have no idea. That's crazy. So you're doing like Long Island Sound or something? What's
It's
it
called Long Island Sound Fest. That's what we're doing today. They just started. This is the first time they're doing it. It's a 2-day thing that they're doing at Mulcahy's, and I don't know how it'll go, but it's so far so good. We'll see.
Is it still, because you don't live here anymore.
No.
So is it still, I don't know, I guess it's just more special when you come home and you get to play?
It's it still feels like home, and I have a lot of family here, and so there's always that revolves around any shows that I play here, catching up with family and all that, and then you just drive around Long Island, or you just see things and kind of reminisce. I was like talking to my friend Brian Diaz. You probably know Brian
of course.
Diaz,
Yeah,
right?
Brian.
He was back on Long Island for like the first time in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of have these flashbacks of things. They're not particularly interesting or like good or bad, but you just like have these things you haven't thought about in years or decades that just come back to you when you're back on Long Island.
Right, when you're heading down Sunrise. But speaking of flashbacks,
Yes.
speaking of Long Island, speaking of history, what I want to do with you is what we do often with our Long Island brethren, is to go back a little bit and even talk about before you got into bands, before you started actively playing live and all of that. Thinking about when you first discovered this music scene, maybe your first show, what you first walked into, what was that?
I think one of the first proper like Long Island hardcore scene shows that I went to was it was at the PWAC
Okay.
in Lindenhurst,
Mhm.
and I didn't really know anything about it. Antonio, who was the first singer for Taking Back Sunday,
The original
singer, he was really like tied into that scene, and he would always tell me about it. I was a musician, but I'm listening to like grunge and like hippie stuff, and I didn't really know anything about what was happening in the Long Island scene, but he was really into it, and I think he was probably the one who got me to go to a show. So yeah, it was at the PWAC. I'm pretty sure Cleanser played,
Christian
maybe
McKnight.
H2O as well. I'm not sure. It's a long time ago. I was probably like 18 or something, which
Someone will correct that.
Yeah,
Trust me.
Someone's on standby.
Well, actually, that show.
That's right, it wasn't. They're going to post a flyer or whatever.
Yeah, so that was my introduction. That was the first, I think, proper Long Island show
So-
that I went to.
Like, all right, coming from, like you said, like the grunge era and all that other stuff, so what did you think of the show? Like a band like Cleanser or even like H2O, like how did that like knock you off your equilibrium?
Like, musically speaking, I was pretty much like, I almost kind of felt like an old man there, like a little
That's
bit,
not
it's
music.
like, there's no, where's the melody?
Yeah.
Like everyone's just yelling and stuff, and I'm like, what is this?
You're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I really did. I was an 18-year-old old man.
Play wood.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. But I was also, though, really amazed by like the fact that you would go to these things, and I don't know how many people were there. It could have been 100 or give or take, but everybody was like going nuts, and like the people were so into it, and like, you know, singing every word, and like I had never really seen anything like that. So it was pretty eye-opening for me to like see, like, oh, this is something that exists. This is amazing.
Yeah, it is like when you first see it for the first time, you almost like the DIY aspect of it. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
there's no one really in charge except for the people here, and
Yeah.
you made something happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucking, to this day, it's like a special thing that not like, I guess we take for granted because we just know nothing but that.
Right.
But when you explain it to people, they don't get it, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, it's just like, this is what you have. You have bands that come from tour, and then you just find a venue and you bring a PA, and
Right.
everyone does their thing. It's amazing to this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, and if you could see it on a video, if you could see it on YouTube, you'd get a sense of what you're walking into. But at a time when that wasn't readily available, there weren't videos of H2O
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Cleanser. You're walking into, it's like Lord of the Flies. You're like, what's going on here? So it takes your breath away to some degree.
Yeah.
Does a show like that like influence your songwriting later on? You said you like Antonio, so that's kind of like how you met Antonio, and you guys just start the band.
Well, we were actually went to school together.
Okay.
We were at a weird Christian school in Levittown, and so that's how I knew him. And I dated his sister for a long time through high school and for a little bit after.
Shout out to Mari.
Mari, yes. And so that was how I knew him. And then as far as the songwriting stuff, that I really never even went that far down that side of the Long Island scene. It was when I heard Inside, that was the one that grabbed me, and I was like, yeah, all right, I can get into this. So that was where I started to kind of go. And again, there was more melody, so I needed that. I needed a little more of the melody and a little less of the heavy.
I'm with you. Like, so growing up, like hardcore was never really a thing for me. Melody was big.
Yeah.
So when I stumbled across like Silent Majority or stuff like that, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, okay, this I like. Everything else was cool, but like, I was listening to like the Lemonheads when people were going to like hardcore shows,
Right.
Because I'm like, oh, this is cool, but like I needed melody. So, and then later on with like your body of work, like I was telling him, like I gravitated towards that first Straylight Run record because I loved it. So I definitely connect with you on that. So
Yeah.
So
I'm all about kind of having a strong melodic sensibility in songs,
That's those bands that got bigger from this area had that. Even if they started in hardcore like VOD or Glassjaw,
Yeah.
how did they get bigger? Is because they had a melody that other people, outside of this, alpha male circle
Right.
would like.
Yeah,
they didn't like
that's
getting just shouted out. They would get a little lullaby once in a while.
Right, exactly.
So, you get into this scene to some degree. Go to the PWAC. Antonio Longo is schooling you.
Yes,
from what I
he's
understand.
telling
And then-
me, show me the ropes.
And it's showing you the ropes. And then that step to being a band. What was the first, I guess, foray into that?
Well, I'd always, as soon as I started playing guitar, I started making bands. It was just that. So that was like I was like 15, 16. So I was always just playing music with my friends, but it wasn't anything that we weren't plugged into any bigger scene.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I ever did was just you play it like at the high school talent show, or you play it at church or something,
Right.
and nobody sees you or knows who your band is, but you keep doing it because it's fun. But I actually started a band with Antonio, not probably a couple of years after that, and it was pretty short-lived, but that kind of led to me trying out for Taking Back Sunday, because Eddie knew Antonio and asked Antonio to sing. Antonio asked me if I wanted to try out for guitar on that, so that was like what led to the beginning of me being in the band.
And that was, you get into the band, and is there that push for, we want to be different, we want more melody in this, like your beginning stages, was that your take on it?
Well, like, I think we had a pretty similar sensibility, like Antonio and Eddie and I, like, I mean, there was definitely different bands that we were into and stuff, but, well, like, obviously, like, Eddie started Inside and, had started a few projects. I think that they're always a little more in the melodic hardcore world than in, like, the total, like, heavy, screamy hardcore.
Right.
And, like, my thing was I really got into, like Get Up Kids and Promise Ring and stuff like that, and, Sunny Day Real Estate, and Antonio and Eddie were kind of there on that, too. So I think there was a shared sensibility. There wasn't a lot of discussion of, like, oh, we want to make it like this or go in this direction. It was kind of, we would just get together and work on songs, and they came out the way they did. It was just kind of how we did it.
In the very beginning, did you always, like, play, because for me, like, I play guitar, so whenever you add in a second guitar player, you need to, like, adjust to that. Did you have, like, that with Ed? Like, was one, like, the lead, one rhythm? Like, were you just, like, kind of just letting Eddie do his thing, and then you just added the flavoring?
Yeah, at the beginning, Eddie was kind of like the riff guy, and then I would play off of what he did, and then as the band continued and developed, there would be a thing where then sometimes if I had the part, then he would come up with a lead thing to go with that.
And when you were writing the songs, because I mean, you were doing backups, at no part did you feel like you wanted to sing or, like, front the band? You were just always happy, like, doing the backups?
No, I mean, I did, but Antonio was the guy, and so I did my part, and then when Antonio was out, Eddie was basically like, Adam's gonna be the singer, and it was just there was no discussion about it. But, like, yeah, I would have liked to be the singer of Taking Back Sunday. I thought maybe, and actually what I thought, because Adam played bass.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
And I thought we would do a thing where, like, Adam would stay on bass and sing, and I would sing some songs, and he would sing other songs, because we were both songwriters. That was how I envisioned things going. But Eddie was just like, no, we need a front man who doesn't play an instrument and sings, and that's what it's going to be. And so it was like, all right, well, I guess that's what we're going to do.
Because when you see a band live, like, obviously, because, George does his thing, obviously. But you do, I guess, like, that's pretty crazy to have, like, that thinking back then, where it's like, no, we need someone not, because, like, even, like, I love Weezer, but when you watch Weezer, they're all kind of, like, even the Get Up Kids, they're all stuck to their instruments.
Right.
The only one who gets to jump around is, like, James,
Yeah. It's a different kind of show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Eddie can pick them.
Yeah.
He always picks that singer.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
He should not be in a band. He should be a talent scout.
That's what he was like.
That's a good point.
We went through it.
Ohio's Got Talent.
He got me as a singer. He got Mike Malamo, George Fulham, Adam Lazzara.
He picked, like, decided on the singers for the bands? Like,
he starts the bands. So he basically, is the connector.
Right.
Do you want to be in a band? Do you want to be in a band? I know I left someone out. Vinny Caruana.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so he's like, you're the singer.
he can pick them.
That is true. I never even really thought about that, but it's kind of amazing. Like, looking back on his track record of, like, picking singers for bands.
Singers who have no business singing is a little bit more if we flesh it out. That's really what it is. It's not like born singers, guys who are like, oh, these guys got good pipes.
Yeah.
It's like, you should sing, and it's like, okay, he's got a good track record.
Well, like, Adam, I don't know if he had ever been the singer for a band. Like, he sang, and he would do backing vocals and stuff, and I don't know, he might have done something, when he was young, but he wasn't a singer per se. It was more about, like, I think Eddie saw, like, his presence, his charisma, and kind of picked him on that, and then Adam was like, all right, I'll do it. That was it.
It's his
Worked
new
out
career.
all right.
I'd say that's I'm gonna send him a. I think we talked about it on that episode,
his,
but that could be his new career.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he definitely, like, the Ohio's Got Talent. If someone could get that going and
Yes.
make him a judge on some kind of reality singing show or, something like that.
I mean, honestly, if you look back at the sound and, like, for him to be, just so involved with everything, like, it's, I don't know what satisfies people, but it's, that's one hell of a footprint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So you're in Taking Back Sunday. Things are moving along with your new singer.
Yeah.
And so now, it's funny when you come from the hardcore scene because you say hardcore, but it's really not hardcore.
Yeah.
You're but we kind of like know it when we see it type of thing. But your initial reactions as your band starts to play every basement and every VFW hall on Long Island and maybe in the states surrounding.
Mm-hmm.
What was that initial like with that change with now Adam's here and you're doing this?
It was pretty immediate that we jumped right into writing and recording. We were talking about this the other day. I think we recorded a 5-song demo within probably like 2 or 3 months of him starting to sing.
Mm-hmm.
We just went and we felt like we were onto something immediately with it, and we started to see that, and it was on a small scale, but within a few months of having the demo and continuing to play the new songs and and things just kept escalating, and there was one show in particular at Ground Zero, I think it was Ground Zero in Belmore.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like people. Well, first of all, it was one of the first times we saw like a big group of people that we didn't know, like at the show. It was because usually it was friends of friends at least, maybe there's a few people you don't know, but there was like it was fans of the band, like people who were showing up, I guess, because they had heard about our band and wanted to check it out, and then there was like the people that had been following us and were our friends and friends of friends were just going nuts over us. It was just like, and there's just this one particular show where it was just obvious that something amazing was happening, and like people were losing their shit, and we burned a bunch of CDs. I think Mark said I think he had burned like 40 CDs, him and Sean between them, that back in the day when it took like 15 minutes
forever,
to burn
yeah.
a CD. But they had done it over a few weeks, and we sold 40 of our demos or something like that in like 20 minutes after the show. It was just like, it was mind-blowing. I mean, it's still a very small scale, like Ground Zero, I don't know, maybe 100 people could fit in there. But yeah, it was just something was happening. It was really exciting.
And so you're moving on, right? And the band starts to get bigger. You're breaking out of your local scene. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you're getting to a point, it's like 20,000 records sold and all of that. And you're just sort of at this, like, certain specific level. And then at one point, you're out of the band. You leave the band.
Yeah. It's
well-documented stuff. We probably don't need to get into it.
Yeah, we can talk about it if we need to. I mean, but it was crazy. Well, I think by the time this is another thing, because we're coming up on the 20-year mark for the band, and so we've been kind of doing some things, sort of like reminiscing, and they'll probably come out in some form or another. But one thing I was amazed at is so Adam did his first show as a singer, and Sean did his first show as bass player on New Year's Eve of 2001. Mm-hmm. So that's just first show, at a house, at someone's house, and I think it was our friend Marianne's house, actually. And within about 2 years, it was literally 2 years from that, playing a house show that we just started with this new lineup, to going on a nationwide tour, selling out about 1,000 to 1,500 cap rooms.
Wow.
Every single show, and closing in on 100,000 records sold, like within 2 years of that. So it was crazy, and there was a lot of things that happened, like interpersonally, that led to Sean and I leaving. But it was such an insane ride for all of us, and when I look back on that, like, I mean, it's sometimes I would think like, oh man, I wish I would have handled that better. I feel like I could have worked things out. We could have stuck it out, and then other times I look back and it's just like, I mean, we were all kids, and then that jump from just being a band that is trying to get by, hoping to get somewhere, to within 2 years at that level was really mind-boggling for everybody, and I think it affected everyone in different ways, and we were all kind of like, our heads were spinning. It was crazy.
And what your band did, which is a lot of what we all learned from this area and probably many areas of the country, is you literally gained every single fan, like every crevice you could play. It wasn't like, well, what we did is we struck up a deal with this one and we got that and we got it's gaining fans one by one, and it's so organic. It's so it's a thing that's probably often overlooked. Yeah. And that's that's what I always saw and noticed about you, man. I think it's in a lot of ways for people from back home, Long Island, was why they respect your band so much, because we could see that you didn't skip anyone's basement to go play the biggest venues and gain fans that way. It naturally grew, but it's still got to be in 2 years. It's got to be like madness to turn around, and this is what you got.
It was. It really was, and like. And we did a tour, the first tour we ever did, like Adam booked it. It was with a band called North Star, who did pretty well for themselves after, in like 2004-ish. But at that point, both of us were unknown, but they had a following in Alabama, and we had our, following in New York and maybe New Jersey and Connecticut. And I think Neil Rubenstein hooked us up, and we were like, so let's book a tour. We'll go to the New York area, we'll start there, and then cover everything in between down to Alabama, and get to where you guys have fans. But it was, like 2 or 3 weeks, and we had no following anywhere in between. It was just sort of like, well, let's just do it and see what happens. And, like literally most of the shows, it was like just whoever happened to be at the bar, mostly like old people who were mad that we were setting up and playing music, and they just wanted to drink their beer in peace or whatever.
When can we put the jukebox back on?
But that was also our mentality. Just go, get out there, play shows, and and hopefully something's gonna happen.
Don't you think? I think you need that mentality, right? I mean, maybe today is different because you could just reach so many people. Blessing and curse the internet is, obviously. But I mean, I think if you want to get out there, you need to just, I would imagine, just get in a van for the next 9 months and fucking play everywhere that you possibly can.
Yeah, I think you still got to get in front of people. I mean, you can get somewhere, I think, with the internet, but I think that's a small percentage of people who are, their career is taking off just from something happening on the internet without getting in front of people and playing live.
Nothing really replaces work.
Yeah.
Even if you, for some reason, there's a lot of like hip hop SoundCloud rappers.
For all you young kids listening.
There's a lot of hip hop artists that blow up. They may blow up, but in order to sustain, then they got to work after they blow up. So at some point, you can't really replace a work ethic and expect to continue, even if you got the biggest break in the world. At some point, it's got to kick in.
Yeah.
So you do it now or you do it later if you want to stay in that business.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sustainable float's good. Like, for 20 years to play to 1,000 to 1,500, like that's, sign me up,
Yeah.
That's it. That's like the gem. There's U2s, and then there's like the little Zans of the world that, but then everything else. Well, I'm thinking like Little Xan, like, in 2 years he might not be here. U2's been here forever. and everyone else in the middle, like a Queens of the Stone Age. Like most people don't know what they even sound like, but they'll fucking play to like 4,000 people everywhere. So
Yeah.
but your frame of mind to get in this band that actually takes off and then kind of just like leave, obviously for whatever reasons, man, that must have just taken, like, how long did it take you to get to that realization that you're like, you know what, fuck it, I'm out?
It really just hit me one day, and for some reason it was hitting Sean, our bass player, at the same time. And I remember we actually had a conversation, and there was a lot but one of the big things that it was just, it wasn't fun. It wasn't, we weren't enjoying it. I mean, it's like, and that's kind of the whole point. That's like why we got into this. I mean, it's great to be that successful and have things going that well, but it's like, if you're not enjoying it, then what's the point of it? I mean, that was my mentality, and I hit that point, and I realized, I'm like, I'm not having fun. I'm not looking forward to what the band is going to do next. And we had like a year of stuff like lined up, like touring wise, and I think we even had like a Warped Tour.
What were you
We
not
had all this
enjoying?
stuff.
Like, what changed?
Well, the relationship between all of us at that point, I felt was pretty bad. It wasn't what it used to be. We had, I think at the start we always had our fights and our things and disagreements, but it felt like we were all in it together. And then, like, I think there was a thing, as things took off, it's kind of like everybody starts feeling like they're the reason that things are going so well, and they're not getting enough credit, and myself included. I think everybody kind of had this chip on their shoulder a little bit, which is weird. It's like you would think things are going well, so everyone would be like, hey guys, isn't this great? We're doing great. But instead everyone's like, I'm the reason things are going. So, well, no one gives me any credit. No one pays any attention to what I've done to make this band so successful. And there was definitely that mentality within all of us, I think. I can't speak for everyone, but it seemed like that. And it didn't, like, we weren't having fun together. We weren't hanging out. It didn't feel like we were friends. And my relationship with Adam in particular really had deteriorated. And that was a big part of what had been so fun, is we worked so closely together on those songs for the first album, and we were so close as friends that by that point, like I felt like I didn't know him anymore, and it just like that was a big part of it, and then also like the mentality that the guys who stayed also kind of had the, let's take every single opportunity that everyone gives us to do anything, no matter what it is, we're going to do it. And Sean and I were a little bit like, hey, maybe let's pick and choose something. Maybe we should, like, we don't need to take every single tour that everybody offers us. We don't need to do every promotional thing for some cell phone text contest or something, or like, there were just a lot of things were coming at us, and literally it was just like, yeah, if people want us to do this, yeah, let's do it. And I think Sean and I felt like we should take a step back and like breathe for a minute and maybe like hold off on some things. And the other guys were just like gung ho, like let's go. And so that was another thing. That was just kind of a more on the practical side, but yeah, it and that was not fun too. There was a lot of things that just like, it sounds kind of stupid now to say it, but like just like the different the interviews for like, it was like, again, we were taking everything. So every day you're talking to like 5 or 6 different people, doing these interviews and doing these things to promote, I don't know what, like radio stations or products even, like we were doing, like sponsored. And it just was like, this sucks, man. I was just like, this sucks.
Promoting the
This is
motor-
not fun. I'm not having fun with any of this shit. Like, this is, and I think now I've come around to be a little more appreciative. It's like, oh man, someone's interested enough to take the time to want to talk to me and do an interview. That's really cool. I'm going to appreciate that. Or, you know, and even if a company is like, they want to be involved with our band and they think we can do something together, yeah, let's see. But back then I was a little more like,
Was it more
punk
like
rock or
yeah,
something?
like it was like I was gonna say more of like a what would Ian Mackay do?
Yeah,
type
I
thing.
wasn't thinking like that, but I think just naturally I was a little bit like, just fuck this shit. I was like, this is real corporate bullshit, man. But I'm not even really like a punk rock guy, but I think my mentality then was just naturally kind of punk rock.
Yeah.
I was
But it's
just
the
like,
artist
fuck this.
way. It's
Yeah.
very like there's a natural rebellion, contrarian
Yeah.
to like somebody. It feel like we just automatically feel uncomfortable when we get that type of attention.
Yeah,
you know?
I definitely did. Yeah, I felt very
Yeah.
uncomfortable with
Attention
it.
off of a stage is often uncomfortable. I see
Absolutely.
for artists. You know,
Yeah.
you could take the adulation, take the spotlight, you know, make everybody pay attention to you in what others would see as narcissistic in any other way, wherever you were, but it makes sense there. But when you walk off stage
Yeah.
and someone says these things or they want to give you things, and it could be a much too
That-
much for an artist.
That was actually a thing too that it took me a long time to get used to. Just interacting with fans, and just, you know, kind of trying to accept people thinking that you're just, I don't know what, amazing, or I don't know, like, you know, like even like the first time you go to take a picture with somebody after a show and they're like shaking with nervousness and you know, like they can barely like talk to you because they're so it's an amazing thing. And now when I experience that, I'm just like so grateful for it, and I feel like I know how to like talk to people that are like that and kind of like try to set them at ease and just like take it easy. But back then it was like, Jesus, this is fucking crazy. It would make me very, very uncomfortable. And, you know, like, and just talking to, you know, like 20 people at once after a show, and like, and even the way that people that you were like casual friends and sometimes even like more than casual friends start to treat you differently. You notice this thing is like you didn't used to pay this much attention. I mean, you didn't used to be this interested in hanging out with me or like, you know, like what I had to say. Like everybody starts like, everyone all of a sudden like everyone treats you like you're a lot more important or something. Like,
Right.
this is weird. And it made me very, very uncomfortable. It took me years, probably like a decade, to sort that out for myself.
Isn't it weird the people that don't do artistic things, right? For lack of a better way to phrase it, but let's just say like people you work with, right? If they heard that, they just couldn't understand it because
Yeah.
it's a different DNA.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it-
even hesitant. I feel weird talking about it because I feel it very much like it can sound shitty, like like I'm just not appreciating
but not
what I had. You
not
know,
to
like,
us, right? Because
No,
to me, like it makes
I get
sense.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely get it.
It's
on a
it's
smaller scale.
You hopefully figure it out as you get older.
Yeah,
But it is an uncomfortable thing. Maybe like you have one show, 25 people show up instead of 15, and you're like, you love it, and people are like, you were awesome. But when it starts to really grow, you do struggle with it because the reason why you did art is a more it's hard to explain. It comes from a different place, and then you're flipping it out there on display.
Yeah.
You know, you're almost vulnerable in a way that it's hard to even describe or people to understand that
Yeah.
don't do art consistently, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like even, you know, like I said, I'll sound stupid for a minute, but yeah, like, you know, we all play in bands.
It's not only a minute.
You know, but we all have written songs or been a part of songs that somebody likes, and when you're talking and then they're like, oh yeah, you know, you're like, wow, okay. It's hard to take compliments for anything for me, so I could
Yeah.
relate to that. So I couldn't imagine like on a grander scale, like people constantly bombarding and stuff. But then you kind of like move on, and were you stockpiling, Straylight Run songs, or were they supposed to be Taking
Not
Back
really.
Sunday songs? It's such a different album, It's such a different sound. I think you said that you were influenced by Arcade Fire's Funeral, which is an album I loved as well.
Well, that one actually came out right around the same time,
2004,
as the Straylight Run album.
Yeah,
and that one actually made me be like, oh shit.
That's
I
what it was.
thought the Straylight Run album was like so good, and I was like, man, this is gonna blow people's minds. And then I heard the Arcade Fire, and I was like, god damn it.
That's what you said.
I think
we had this
so much better and working on such a deeper level than what I'm doing, and I was so disappointed in myself and my inability to reach that level, of like songwriting, and just, it was that was the thing. But and then I became a fan after that, but sort of a resentful fan. But as far as like stockpiling songs, I wasn't really. I mean, I was always writing songs, and even when Taking Back Sunday was recording Tell All Your Friends, I would record songs on my 4-track that didn't end up becoming Taking Back Sunday songs, and they didn't end up becoming Straylight Run songs. It was just sort of, I just was always writing songs, and there was probably like 3 or 4 that I had that would become Straylight Run songs. And if I'd stayed in the band, like, probably what would have happened is some version of that would have become a Taking Back Sunday song, but it probably wouldn't have sounded like Straylight Run did, because that's what would happen. Is like I would have an idea, and a lot of times it'd be on an acoustic guitar or something, and then it goes through the Taking Back Sunday process, and everyone adds their input and everyone does their thing, and then it comes out as something different than what I would have done on my own. And then, so with Straylight Run, I had a few songs starting out, but I really just hit also like a point of like, it was just sort of an unbelievable time with songwriting for me. It was just like things were just coming and happening really quickly, and a lot of those songs came together after I already left the band, but just very quickly.
You got your sister in the band too, right?
Yeah.
And then Sean came over, and then Will Noon, right, was the drummer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and him and Sean knew each other for a long time. I think they kind of played I don't know if they were in a band in high school, but they at least like got together and jammed or something. They like went back that far.
Yeah. And such a different sound. And you guys are like running like parallel for a minute, kind of, right? Like where it was just I know that you guys had like a Buzz Clip video, right? Wasn't the prom night one? So like at this point, like Straylight Run is kind of like taken off, and do you feel like, holy shit, like, okay, this is like, I don't know, maybe you made not the right decision, but like you landed on your feet?
Yeah. I honestly, I couldn't believe it. Sean and I were pretty sure that we were killing our career in music, and especially with like the sound, like you said, being so different. It's not like we went off and started Taking Back Sunday 2.0. Mm-hmm. We just did, like a complete turn from what we were doing, and we had no expectations. It was just like, this is what we want to do, we're gonna do it. So when people started responding to it, it was like, all right, great. This is I was amazed. I really was. I did not expect people to be into it. So yeah.
And then from there, like the EP comes out. I know like Isaac helped you write some of those songs too, right? I remember watching the video for Big Shot.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it and thinking like, holy shit! Like it almost felt like it had like an angry 9 Inch Nails vibe to it, and it was so different. The video was amazing, but once again, I felt like it was even like a progression from like the first record. And at that point, I was really like, I was sold on the band. Like I was completely into like the music you guys were doing. So around that EP, and then I love that one. And then from there, the record after it, I didn't even know there was a record after it.
A lot of people didn't know that. Yeah,
I had no idea.
Thanks for bringing that up.
But it, and then like when I talked to Sean on my other podcast, like we talked about it and I listened to it and all that other stuff. So what was the time basically like closing out the Straylight Run chapter.
Well, so we put out the second full length, and you know, it's kind of a bummer looking back, like, because I think that the EP should have just been our second album. We had songs, we could have recorded another 3 or 4 songs and just made that an album, and I think it would have done really well. But we were like getting out of our contract with Victory, so we like put that EP out to kind of fulfill the contract, and then we got signed to a major for the second, and then we just had the standard like major label experience where, you know, it's basically, you know, it doesn't take off immediately, so they're just done with it. But so that was rough, because, and then that album, like looking back now too, it's like it makes sense. It's not like a major label album. Like we completely, I think, like, and looking back too, I think like with the first Taking Back Sunday album, or I mean the first Straylight Run album and the EP, both, it was sort of like the mentality was like, we'll do whatever we want, and fuck it, and people loved it, and then we continued that with the second full length, and then people didn't love it, and so that was like my first real taste of like failure in you know, like, and even that is kind of silly to say, because, you know, we were on a major label. It probably sold, I don't know, a decent number of records, and we were fine probably, but it felt really like devastating to me. I was like, it took me a long time to like to come back from that, and so then we did like 2 more. We decided to do EPs. We were gonna, we kind of like cut off from the music business and managers and all that, and then we're gonna like we were like, we'll just release EPs and then like put out an album collecting the EPs. And by the time the second EP came out, it was just like things had really just gone downhill. Like people were not coming to the shows anymore, and like and again, we weren't really having a lot of fun. It was but then it made sense that we weren't having fun, because things were going very badly.
So at that point, like what did you think your future was going to be like?
I started doing, that's when I started doing solo stuff, because I was like, well, maybe I can, if it's just me, maybe you know, I can play small shows and, you know, kind of keep a career going, and and do whatever I want, and hopefully it'll be fun. And so that was where my head was at. I kind of was gearing up to like just, you know, start building something, a solo career. And I put out, I think the first solo album I did, Straylight Run, was still together, but it was kind of like on the way out. So that's where I was going. And I mean, like, I've always just made music. I don't really know what else to do, so I didn't have a backup plan. You know, I wasn't like gonna get a job. I'm like, and luckily at that time my wife was working, and like that was a thing too. I was like, well, you might have to like support us, and she's like, yeah, that's fine. And
that's awesome.
And she could have
ride or die right there. So this whole time, are you in contact with anybody like Mark or?
Mark's the only one. Mark, I would always hang out with every time I was on Long Island, and actually I lived in Long Beach for a while when I was in Straylight Run, and he lived, you know, like half a mile away, so we would see each other. But he was the only one. The other guys I never I didn't talk to until I came back to the band. Yeah,
so that was like 2010. I think the way Mark and Sean described it, like, I guess Mark reached out, you know, and everyone kind of agreed. I think you guys met up in Texas, right?
Yeah, El Paso.
Which is the name of the first song on the comeback record.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the reunion record, I guess you want to say.
I guess, yeah. I don't know what you call it, but
I tell Mark all the time, El Paso is one of the best Taking Back Sunday songs ever written.
I love that song.
It's fucking great, right?
Well, and I'm sure he told you this, but you're probably one of the only
one of
5 or 10 people who thinks that. And every time we say that, somebody will be like, "No, I love that song." But man, that song's great. I love it as well. We thought that was the thing. We thought everyone was gonna love it when they heard it, and it was sort of like, yeah, okay. Everyone was no one like hated it or disliked it, but we thought people were gonna like lose their shit when they heard that song, because that's how we felt when we wrote it. We're like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah, when I listened to that song, I was just like, oh, all right, okay, cool. You know, so definitely, like, I was one of, like Mark said, one of 5, so maybe 6 now.
Yeah, hovering around. I saw the interview with the guy from The Used, so you're hovering around 15.
Yeah.
People like it. Somewhere
Okay,
right around
good.
there.
Oh, there's someone in the Used.
It was an interview with
Is it-
you, and it was almost the same thing. It was like, I think he was the singer of
Was it
Bert?
Bert? Yeah, we did do some.
And he was talking about El
joint
Paso, and
interviews.
you guys were like, 6 people like it.
Right.
And then you figure, oh, my friend likes it. Oh, it's 7. You're like counting it 8, 9, so it's somewhere
Yeah.
around 15.
Yeah.
It's getting. We've done that a few times. We're not really keeping track. It's probably. We might be getting close to 30 now.
I feel like you guys played it.
It's like a Long Island basement show. You should just do it.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys meet up, and like, what was that like to just kind of like take that phone call to go back? Like, were you apprehensive?
Yeah. Well, you know Mark.
Yeah.
He's very persuasive person. We have a saying that, you know, he can mark somebody into something. That's like, you know, we use that as a verb. You know, he marks you into doing something, you know, because he's so persuasive. But he called me. I was on a solo tour. Called me like completely out of the blue and was just like, "Do you want to be back in Taking Back Sunday?" It's like, no. That was my first reaction, and then we talked for probably like an hour, and by the end, I was like, "All right, I could see how this might work," and but like I said, I hadn't talked to Eddie or Adam, but Adam in particular was the big thing, and I said to Mark, I was like, I need to get on the phone with Adam and talk to him and reconnect and see what that's like before I could even think about being in the band. So that was the next step, is then Adam was open to that, so we started talking on the phone, and it was great. It was like surprisingly normal, and like one of those things where it didn't feel like as much time had passed, where you kind of just like pick back up in a strangely natural way. And then when we all got back together in El Paso, it was great. It was a really really fun time, and we had like we were in the middle of nowhere, and we had this little house that we were staying in, and then a studio across the way. But like the actual studio was probably half a mile away from where we were, so we were just like completely isolated, and we could go in and record whenever we felt like it or not, and we kind of just hung out and played music when we felt like it, and then, you know, just drank and talked and reconnected, and it was a great time.
Do you think that's the best way to make a record, is to just basically like have that you're there? You know, that's like the one thing about like
if you can afford it.
Yeah, if you can afford it.
We were still with Warner Brothers at
can't.
that point. It was on their dime, so we were like, we'll record when we feel like it. They're paying
Schedules
for
are
this.
loose.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's the one thing we
It's not coming-
romanticize about, like, you know, not being in like professional bands, is like, wow, you guys get to go to a house and just hang out and make a record after a month or so. Like, it's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, we don't work like that anymore. We're not with Warner Brothers anymore. Our work ethic has gotten a lot stronger since then. Just because
you got picked up by Hopeless, which is home
Yeah.
of the Used, and I always tell Mark, I'm like, yo, you're on the same label as Sam I Am. And he doesn't give a shit, but I'm like, they're like the best band on the planet. So leading up, like, right, you're back and you start making solo records. When again, like 2015 was the first one.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, 2014 or 2015.
Now, what led up to just? I mean, you just felt like it was time to make another John Nolan solo record.
Yeah, well, like Taking Back Sunday, once things started going again, it's like there's kind of a natural cycle to the way we do things, and it's like we have our recording time, then there's a little bit of a lull, then the album comes out, and then it's just we're on tour, like year and a half, maybe more, and then it slows down, and then it starts again. So I was kind of able to see the where the lulls were, the slow points in what Taking Back Sunday was doing, and I just it's just something I really like to do, and especially with the second solo album that I did, like it was basically like kind of getting together with a bunch of great musicians and kind of doing something that was in a like almost it was, I don't know if classic rock is the right word, but it was a little bit in that vein of
Very
sort
much
of like
the
60s, 70s.
The first
like,
solo record, definitely. Like the what is it? Something blues song, like that had like who played that solo?
That was my friend Mike Strandberg. He plays on the whole album. So that's the second record.
Okay.
Even it's misleading on Spotify. The first one was in 2009, and that was just basically me doing everything and then sending it to Mike Sapone, the producer, and then he added some drums and synth stuff and really produced it and made it sound good. The second one, though, I put a band together in the studio, and Mike Strandberg, he plays with Brian Bonds and Kevin Devine.
Oh, wow.
And he's an amazing guitar player. And so basically that album, I was like, I'm going to play the acoustic guitar and the piano and then have amazing musicians just kind of do whatever they feel like doing on these songs, and that's what I did, and it was really fun, and
it just lets you do something different from
yeah.
like the day job.
Yeah,
it's
almost like a little bit like a vacation, even still work, but it feels like just fun. There's no pressure. It doesn't mean like no one's like cares if I do it or don't do it. It's it's nice.
So that's that's a relief. That takes all the pressure off.
Yeah, it's nice to not have to care if anyone's gonna. It's not gonna have to pay the bills, Right. So that's nice.
And when you tour, so you do all this touring with Taking Back Sunday, and then you go on tour again.
Yeah.
There's no sense of like I need to stay home, burnt out.
Well,
just go for it again.
There's a little bit. I think like once I had kids though, my work ethic got a lot stronger. It's weird because like I had much more time on my hands before I had kids. I could have done a lot more, and I chose at that point to take that time to be leisurely and just hang out. And once I had kids, though, I don't know, something kicked in where like I don't know, I wanted to keep working and keep making things. I guess one on a practical sense of it's a good thing to do because you got to keep these kids alive. It costs money. But
put that high up on the list.
Yeah.
That'll be the quote for the podcast.
Yeah.
John Nolan keeping the kids alive.
2018 through 19.
But also, you know what it is too. Like I don't know if I'm off on this, but like the fact that it's music is so accessible and disposable now that you just like. I don't know, like people can forget quickly,
Yeah.
You put something out and a month goes by and you're like, oh, when's the next record coming out? And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what the hell? I just gave you 13 songs.
It's crazy.
And you could, it's easier to be heard, but it's just harder to be found. There's
Right.
just so much
That's true.
shit.
That is very true.
Yeah.
You
got to keep out there,
Yeah, and so it's the thing, do you keep putting out as much as possible? Is that the answer, or do you pull back? Like, I guess at any time in the music industry, nobody knows what the right formula is, but it does present like newer and interesting problems. I could just put out something tomorrow. Is that the right thing to do? Should I hold it back?
Right.
Do one a month?
Well, I think the streaming seems to be like completely like writing itself now. I think Spotify and Apple Music seem to know what's going on, and I think now Spotify and Apple Music seem to be almost like a Netflix now. Like people have it, you're there, you're going to get a revenue stream no matter what. I think it seems to be working. And I don't know. It's just the fact that anyone can go up to you and be like, like the other day I was getting coffee and we were talking about bands and I was like, oh, I play in a band. They were like, oh, which one? And I'm like, do you have Spotify? Pulls it right up.
Like immediately, yeah.
Immediately.
You can just listen to it.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Same thing with the podcast and stuff like that. So I like that part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything about that you don't like?
Well, I think kind of you said it, but music has become fairly disposable, and that is it's sad. And like I sometimes talk. I don't know. I think it was. I've had a conversation with some people like who don't even have like pay for streaming music, and it's like it's not even worth $9 a month to you to like have access to all the music that's ever been recorded, like ever. Like they're kind of, I don't know, $9. I get it. It's like I don't. That bums me out. Like,
that bums me out.
Yes.
When people say that to me, I'm like, with the other podcasts, like on Red River, like I'm like, yo, Spotify's my favorite $10, and you see this was like my room. Like I spent I bought music all day long every day.
Yeah.
And as I got older, once I hit like my late 30s, now 40, it's just the fact that I have everything I want here. I'm like okay with that. You could have told me Spotify costs $50 a month, and I would have been like, absolutely,
yeah,
I'll give it to you.
Yeah,
and it's a great way to get shit out.
Yeah, and I mean they got to figure out. I don't know if it'll ever happen. It would be amazing if they figured out a way to actually pay artists with the streaming stuff. I mean, there's some money there, but it's just such a small amount of money. It's not. That bums me out as well, but I've also had a history of working with record labels that didn't pay me money for the music I made anyway. So to me, I'm a little bit like I've never been making a lot of money off of recorded music, so it's always been about going on tour, and that's the thing. So in a certain way, things haven't changed, but
it always comes up like it's just the worst business model for some reason when it comes to recorded music. Contracts forever in the music industry were awful. People kind of talk about like how it used to be as a golden era. It was never good.
No, it was terrible.
It was never good.
It was always like throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, and it'll be like, what, I don't know, 10% of the albums you put out in a year for a major label actually make money, and then the rest lose money, and then it's a weird business model.
And they were selling the CDs for like $18, and like the artists were getting like what, like $1 maybe?
Yeah, I guess
Right.
artists have always been getting screwed by.
And the way they make it too, it's like, well, you got to do it like this, and so you have to put out a record. Maybe there's only one good song on it, so it's almost like like everything. It's a pendulum, but it almost feels like eventually the only way to really make money off recorded music is direct to your fans.
Oh yeah,
that's
direct
it.
because you have a Bandcamp as well, right?
I do, yeah.
So the Bandcamp, I think, works great for like now it's like you can go directly, like you said, to consumer.
Yeah.
Even like the advertisement that you were rebelling against back in 04 or 03, whatever. Now you see these bands because it's like, okay, well now we're not going to sell records, so we're going to go on tour, and if fucking Sprint wants to pay me for my song.
Oh yeah, man, God, now I'm like, oh God, I wish some corporation would come around and use a Taking Back Sunday song in a commercial. I'd pray to God every day.
Yeah, like D. Snyder.
Yeah.
We're not going to take it, right? How much money do you think that fucking song has made since it came out? Like everyone uses it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Sir Mix-a-Lot was talking about
another one.
Like what he made off Baby Got Back. It was like $100 million or something like that.
Wow.
Just
one song.
Yeah. However, I guess he went on to explain it to some degree, but Taking Back Sunday needs a kind of a Baby Got Back.
We gotta make our own version of that song.
Yeah, but it's always feast or famine, which is just it's insane in the fucking music industry.
Yeah,
it's just always been that way.
Yeah, it's true.
But you guys, still, the you can go on tour, and what I think really helped Taking Back Sunday out is that every record you guys got new fans. Whether or not you were in the band or not. Leading up to that, like every album the band put out, you got like a new crop of fans. Yeah, that's how bands just keep pushing it to the next level. Like fucking the Misfits. Mm-hmm. Every year, some kid that's 15 years old picked up a Walk Among Us. That's how they still exist, And I think the same thing could be said for Taking Back Sunday. So it just allows you guys to just do your thing. Like every year, you guys go, you do your tour. The Coheed tour was great, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Honestly, it was the biggest tour that maybe the band has done definitely the biggest that I was a part of.
It looked massive.
It was, and literally every day we would come off stage and go, why are things going so well? This doesn't make any sense.
It's
like
Long Island kicking.
Yeah,
That Long Island artist, that Long Island hardcore self-esteem.
Dude, yeah, like instead of celebrating, we're like, why? It's like something can't connect in your brain. Something starts short-circuiting when everything is going so well. It's just like there has to be some catch, right? Like there has to be something must be wrong. There must be something that we're overlooking that's like bad here, right? Like things can't be going this well this far into our career as a band. But
Yeah,
it seems
20
like they are, I guess.
Let your 20-year-old self talk to your 40-something-year-old self and say, no, it can be.
Yeah.
Just, it's all good, dude.
That is crazy, right? When you think about like just starting a band as a kid, and now you're,
Yeah.
like 20 years later, and you're like, holy shit, this happened.
Yeah,
you know?
it's mind-blowing.
Even when like the Straylight, like you go, you do your thing, to the point where, like you said, to the end of Straylight, and then you come back. It's like really an amazing story,
Yeah.
and then you make 3 records, and the Tidal Wave was the last one, right?
Mhm.
Which was probably the one that people like really loved the most, wouldn't you say? Like
I
it
think
got
so.
a great
I don't
reception.
know. I hope so. It felt, yeah, it felt really good. It's really hard to know, but as far as, well, like the fact, yeah, like we're playing like 4 songs from that album in our set, like on that Coheed tour, and they're going over well. So I feel like that's kind of how we can gauge it. Like if we can do that, you can put 4 new songs in a set
absolutely.
and no one's pissed off at you, then like you're doing something right.
But and even like a title track like Tidal Wave, like it's such a departure almost from the sound. You take a chance, but it's such a great song that it just went over well, and it could have not. It could have been like another El
we
Paso.
didn't know. We didn't know at all, and that's kind of where we've gotten to too. Is when we're recording, we have no expectations anymore. It's just sort of like, if we're excited about it, we follow that, and then you just don't know what'll happen once other people hear it. But you can't really control it, so you just gotta. That's all you can do, right? And
Yeah, and you have fun while you're doing it. It's an
Right.
interesting full circle when you sort of start as band of brothers. I mean, we all know
Yeah.
that feeling, and then you get that you were talking about exaggerated sense of yourself from outside influences. Things go crazy.
Yeah.
But when you can come back and
yeah.
be together,
does-
older, and just sort of write again, appreciate each other.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Then you look like, wow, and we have a great record. We're having some fun. It's an incredible story. It's inspiring, to be quite honest.
We're gonna
That's
come
good.
back with the last question, and then we're just gonna take a break. So.
holding stones, speaking in tongues, screaming my name. They know my name, I don't know why. And there's a light that flickers off and on. It sends the servants running to the fire. Another sacrifice to keep it shining bright. Another sacrifice to keep it burning. They call it from the twisted rack. We brought this on ourselves. Do you remember? Do you remember? We built an altar to tear the saints that suffocated slow. Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember? Brought this on ourselves, the suffocated slow. Burn this to the ground, do it all again. We brought this on ourselves, the suffocated slow. We'll burn this to the ground, then we'll do it all again. They call it from the twisted wreck. We brought this on ourselves. Do you remember? Do you remember? We built an altar to tear the saints that suffocated slow. Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember?
And so that brings us to today and where you're at with your tour right now and what you're doing, the record you're promoting. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm doing a tour in the fall, November 6th to the 28th, and it's actually a pretty extensive U.S. tour. It's one of the biggest I've done in a long time for my solo stuff, and I have the band with me for the whole thing, which is also exciting. And I'll have a new solo album that comes out right before that as well. So it's I'm gearing up for all that right now.
What's the name of the new record?
It's called Abendigo.
Say what?
Abendigo?
Abendigo.
That's a made-up word?
Sort of. It's it's based on the story from the Bible. I don't know how familiar you are with the Bible, but it's
just read it on the
story.
way.
I was thumbing through it.
I woke up this morning.
Yeah, it's a popular book. It's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but it's very loosely tied into anything having to do with the record, but I don't even really know how it came about. And I also spelled it wrong. It's not spelled the way it's spelled in the Bible. It's sort of a weird title for a record, but I settled on it. I was like, I just knew I needed to name it that for some reason. So I'll probably spend a long time explaining this to people.
This isn't the last time.
Yeah, this is the first. This is the
many.
first time. I have not talked about the name of the record in an interview yet, and so I'm gonna have to get a stock answer together for this. So thank you for giving me let me test out my explanation for the name of the album here.
Well, is misspelling it like blasphemy? Is this?
I
Like
don't know.
How
Well,
close are we to living eternal life in hell?
but the record, even just naming the record, that I probably nothing in the album has anything biblically sound going on. So even just connecting it, I don't know.
You're safe.
So I could be in trouble. I don't know.
I thought this was your Pedro the Lion album.
Yeah, it's Old Testament, so I don't know if Old Testament God is gonna get mad at me or New Testament God, but that Old Testament God, he didn't take any shit.
No.
So
Good news.
I
I
could
have
be in
a
trouble.
conference call with the three of them, the three of us, on Tuesday.
His
so
name's
I'll,
Chuck Billy.
Oh, good.
I'll bring it up and I'll smooth it over.
It's a Metal
Doesn't
Testament joke.
Nice.
No one got. How many songs are on the record?
There's actually only 8 songs.
That's fucking plenty.
Yeah, but
Brevity.
a lot of them it's 35 minutes long though, so I feel like no one's getting shortchanged. It's there's plenty of music, but yeah, only 8 songs.
I think, especially now, I think 10 is always like a good amount.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about Spotify and stuff like that. It just sometimes it's people just can't concentrate, and 8 is like a good good number to throw at them. 10. Also, what people do is they do release one track at a time. That's what A Perfect Circle did, and I thought that was like a really smart move because they released 3 singles within like 3 months, and it just gave everyone time to absorb the first 3 singles.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it worked for me. No idea.
No,
because by the
that
time the album
makes
came,
sense.
I'm like, wow, I love these 3 songs. I'm ready for the rest.
Well, and then because when you sit down with the album, it's not all new. You have those ones that you're already like, oh yeah, I know this one. I like this one, and that kind of eases you into the ones that you don't know yet. And I think that's the way to go.
How do you promote a record these days, or is that just?
It's interesting. Like for my own stuff, it's hard to figure. Like I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do probably 2 singles before the record comes out. And I say singles, they're not like gonna
Of course.
be on the radio, obviously, but there be single songs that are released to the public, and so that's one thing. And music videos that
Huge.
and it's really just YouTube, and hopefully you make a good enough music video that people watch it, and that gives you some attention. And it was weird. Like I was talking to a publicist about it, and it's just so weird. He's just sort of like, well, no one really cares about interviews anymore. No one really cares about like song premieres anymore. Like if you get like a website to premiere your song, it's like almost like no one cares about anything unless it just sort of like catches on virally or something. It seems like at the level that I'm at, because I don't have access to the mainstream media, so to speak. But
I think a video is huge.
you gotta get it like a video that gets people's attention still, I think, works.
And now, like technology, we can make a video with this iPad.
Yeah.
And it'll look good. But visually, I'm trying to think of bands that put out, I have friends from New Jersey, Honolulu, and for the last record, they released 1 song every month for 12 months with a video.
Oh, wow.
So by the time December came around, they had the full record out with 10 videos, and it was just this visual, and then they released the record. Cool idea, right?
Yeah.
I think visually, when a song has that video, I think it really helps people to absorb it, that click on the link, hopefully.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'm talking to my friend Brian Bonds, who I think I mentioned earlier. He's a musician, but he's also he has a show on YouTube called Bobo Touch, and him and his friend Mike Rizzo have kind of been doing these videos together for a long time, and they're starting to. It's becoming more of an official sort of thing, but I'm talking to him about a music video, and it looks like it's going to happen. They're going to direct it, and we're just going to go like super weird, like dark, oddly disturbing, and hopefully that'll get people's attention. We'll see what happens.
You just did a song for a movie. You did a song for a movie, and the video was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Right? So, like, what was that connection to the movie? Because I think you did, like, a premiere and stuff like that.
Which one was that? Was that the Lost With You video? That one was really the director of the movie. He had the idea, and it was sort of to kind of put me in these different social media settings, and I didn't have to do very much. I just sang the song, and he filmed me, and then like they did a lot of animation and stuff. And
we got to put that link up.
It was a cool idea, and and it was fun doing that song. It was for a movie called Romance in the Digital Age, and
how'd you get involved with that?
The director, kind of through friends of friends, got in touch with me for another movie. He did a movie about Long Island a few years back. It was kind of in the wake of Hurricane Sandy, and it's called Bridge and Tunnel. And he asked me to do a song for that. That was how I met him, and it was a really cool experience working with him on that. And he directed a music video for that one as well, and we've kind of kept in touch and had a working relationship since then. And it's one of those things where I think hopefully we'll continue to be a part of the movies that he does moving forward.
It's fun to just be involved with a lot of things like that, because it just because the song's different, completely different.
Yeah, it is. It's even different from like other solo stuff I've done. It really doesn't have any connection to almost anything. It's like it's
like a challenge, probably, right? You just do these things.
Well, and it's fun to. Well, I don't have to like really worry about it, which is nice. It's like again, it's part of the fun of the solo thing is no one's gonna be pissed off at me. No one's gonna be like, "Hey, why did you do this song like this?" Like, no one really cares, And like the people who like what I do, and it'll be fine, and no one else really pays attention, and it's cool,
It's almost like the way you start.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes
It
up
is
a
the
lot
way you start,
in
yeah.
this podcast. Like people become happier later when it turns out the thing they're doing is for the same exact reason as the way they started.
That's 100% correct. Yeah.
Yeah, thank God for TBS allows you to do your thing, and then from there you just venture off, during the downtime, and stay creative and do your thing.
It's nice, yeah, man. And it, like I was talking to Mark O'Connell about this, because so we did that song, or we're working on the song with Young Dirty Bastard.
So,
and
shout
with
out
one of our sponsors,
Jeff
Raised Fist.
Liskin, Raised Fist, yeah.
But Raised Fist, and but we were talking about a little bit last night, because like we were gonna go out drinking, but he was hanging out with some of the people who were working on that song, and he was like, "Do you want to just go to the guy's house and like record this song tonight?" This was last night. It's like, yeah, like it's you kind of get back to that thing again. It's sort of like that you do when you're young. It's just like,
I'll be right over.
It's fun to go make music with your friends. It's just like, and then really it's more fun than going out drinking. I mean, and we still did that too, but it's like, you can just go and hang out, and that has its place. But I don't know. I the older I'm getting, the more like I just want to be creating things and doing it with friends.
Do you miss home though?
I do, but well, like with solo stuff, my wife plays piano a lot of times, so like she'll come out and tour with me.
Okay.
And do things, and like,
what do the kids play?
My son actually is learning drums. Yeah, that's the first thing every little boy, I feel like, gravitates towards.
You got to move him away from that noisy instrument. You don't want that at home.
I'm letting him. We're allowing it for now, and
so 2025.
But hopefully he'll move on. But if he doesn't, that's fine too.
Just got to hand him a bass by the time he's 5. Just be like.
Yeah, he got in. He wanted a bass and was like really interested in it for a minute, and then once we got him one, he was just like, nah.
Poor bass players.
Yeah.
Always. We have 2 guitar players. You got to play bass, man. That's it. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, the guy.
Those are the rules.
In high school. That was always the way. Yeah. It's like the guy who's like Who's the worst guitar player here? All right, you're gonna play bass.
We're actually doing this from the house of my bass player, Dave.
Right.
So.
And Mariko.
Oh, who's
was
also
my-
a bass player.
Yeah, he was a bass player in Wiretap Crash.
We're shitting all over bass players in their house while they let us use it. Lovely people, lovely people. You want to do the last question?
Well, before we go any
okay.
further, let's thank Mariko and Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
for
you,
letting
thank you.
us have the spot.
Anything else?
You do the last question.
We're good? All right, so the name of the podcast is If I Ruled the World.
Mm-hmm.
So we ask everyone that we have on. Today, John Nolan, if you ruled the world, what would that look like?
It would. I think the world would be a decidedly more hippie-ish sort of looking place than it is right now. I'm still coming to terms with I don't like hippies really, and I don't really want to be a hippie, but
Wasn't expecting that.
I'm kind of like, the older I get, coming to terms with the fact that I kind of just am a hippie, sort of like a punk rock hippie, I guess, if that's a thing.
It's a thing now.
Yeah.
It's a thing now, definitely.
Hashtag.
Coined.
But yeah, I think I would try to push the world in a much more hippie-ish direction. Probably try to. I don't know what steps I would take to sort of navigate to a more peaceful world. I'd figure that out once I was the ruler of the world. But I would definitely push for a more peaceful hippie-ish planet if I was in charge.
There you go.
That's a newer answer, right? Hippie-ish.
Hashtag fish. Hashtag pray Anastasia.
Hashtag.
I was a big Fish fan in
punk
high
rock
school.
hippie.
Wow.
Luckily I got out of that.
Yeah. Oh boy.
All right, John
Well,
Nolan,
we'll
who
end
wants
it
a
there.
world with longer hair,
Longer hair.
protest music,
No
and
shoes.
Yeah.
no shoes,
No shoes, less war.
Armpit hair for everyone.
Yep.
and free love, baby.
No, I'm not even gonna go.
Make
there.
love, not war.
That's right. All right.
John
thank-
Nolan, thanks so much for being here, brother.
Thank you for having me.
If I